He taught us things not known to kings.
Jack Poole erased everybody's labels. He looked at someone and he welcomed them for what they were.
Jack Poole, in many ways, was the personification of Rudyard Kipling's poem, If, in which he says, "If you can walk with kings and not lose the common touch, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can meet triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word of your loss." It was as though those words were written about Jack. He started life in Mortlach, Saskatchewan with dreams of a professional hockey career.
And unfortunately, he had a tragic accident one night when they were walking home from hockey. He got hit by a car, and that basically ended the possibilities of a hockey career.
It was the first real test of his inner strength. Rather than dwell on what might have been, Jack focused on what was possible. Already married with 2 children, he graduated from the University of Saskatchewan, having won the heavyweight wrestling championships. He went to work for Gulf Oil in Calgary and sold Fuller brush products on the side to supplement his income. Next, he joined a firm in Edmonton that eventually transferred him to Vancouver. Here, he met and persuaded Graham Dawson to start what would become Dayon Development Corporation. That company burgeoned into the 2nd largest real estate developer in North America.
Dayon had just, as Jack said, the banks were throwing money at us. We could do anything we wanted. And yet at the same time, all of a sudden interest rates were 22%. There were a lot of companies, development companies, that just couldn't carry that freight. Jack, at one time, I think Dayon owned $2.4 billion or plus to 54 different banks. And I think they were ready to pull the plug.
The debt was staggering. Jack Poole was stressed. He was physically ill, but true to his nature, he struck a deal with his lenders.
Jack met with them and said he could work with them to get their money back, and if they didn't need him, he could go back to Mortlach.
It was then that Peter Brown introduced him to David Podmore.
You knew that this was a fellow that was not going to give up. He was going to do everything in his power to honor the commitments that have been made by those organizations, to make sure that everybody that was affected, that the very best was done to minimize or mitigate any difficulties for them. And you knew that he had that commitment and that power, and so you wanted to work beside him.
Together, Jack and David worked to set Dayon right. By 1989, they had accomplished their mission.
Out of the blue, he says, "Well, I think we're pretty well there, and it's going over to Brookfield. They're going to want you to go to Toronto," but he says, "I think we should form a company together." And again, I said, "That's a pretty good idea. I'd sure love to work with you."
Today, that company,